Hi, everybody. It is Lee Milteer, and welcome to the Blonde Warrior Show here on Grassroot Network, here on Rumble. We have a fantastic guest today, Joe Nunziata, who is someone you should pay attention to. Let me tell you about Joe. He's a best-selling author, business consultant, professional speaker, and a life coach. He teaches that to make permanent changes, you must clear your negative energy and break destructive patterns and behaviors at your core level. Since 1992, Joe has been delivering his life-changing messages at events and seminars all over the place. His programs blend spirituality, psychology, philosophy, and the power of internal energy. He's worth paying attention to. He's appeared on lots of television and radio shows. I'll just give you a few. Good Day New York, Street Talk on Fox TV, Cablevision, Channel 12, Gaia TV, Better TV, the Brave Heart Network, and other radio stations and TV stations across the country. Now, he's the author of numerous books, including Spiritual Selling, Chasing Your Life, Karma Buster, Spiritual Selling, Finding Your Purpose, and No More 9 to 5. He's created a lot of audio, video, and written materials, including Elevate Your Energy Now, No More Mental Barriers, Connect to Your Spirit, and the 7 Keys to Transformation. And he says you can change your life when you are willing to uncover and face your negative beliefs and feelings. So we want to welcome Joe to the show. Joe, it's so great to see you.
You too. Thank you so much for having me.
You know, Joe, I've been following you for a very long time. And one of the reasons I've been following you is because you mix spirituality and business together. And of course, I love to do that. And I don't think I've ever told you this before, but I wrote a book a number of years ago called Spiritual Power Tools for Successful Selling. And yes. I'm pretty sure my career was over after that. Because
I know the feeling.
I was so afraid, you know, to really put out into the world who Lee Milteer truly is, which is, you know, very spiritual, but yet very business. And so I wanted to have you on the Blonde Warrior Show for lots of reasons. I know you have a new book coming out. We'll talk about that. But our topic today is get enlightened to get empowered. So I think you'll agree with me. We're living in insane times. And
for sure.
Actually, people need people like you and I who will, you know, combine a lot of different thought processes together to navigate this kind of world. And one of the frustrations that I'm sure you are most aware of is that we're sharing the truth. We're giving information out, but there's a lot of people who have just shut their ears, shut their eyes. The truth is not all people are going to choose to wake up. So let's talk about that, because it is a very scary and frustrating reality.
Yeah, you know, I think that's one of the things doing this work. I think when I first started a long time ago, I'm sure you were the same. And, you know, I had the same coming out experience in New York back when I did spiritual selling. And basically, you know, you get excited, you learn something new, you want to share it with everybody, right? We have that feeling. And then, you know, as you go through the process, you realize, okay, this is not for everybody. I don't want to be preachy. I don't want to push it down somebody's throat. And to me, a big principle of this is really accepting that not everyone is going to wake up, which is true. And also not everyone is going to see it the way you see it. And the key to me in that is there's no judgment. In other words, I don't want to judge the fact that you see it that way and I see it this way. I think that's where we're getting into all the conflict, because we've got a lot of people fighting with each other because they're disagreeing instead of just saying, okay, I see it this way, you see it this way. That's okay. But of course, it stirred up a lot of people because that's what really the powers that be would like us fighting and like separation. So that's what they keep creating. And we have to be able to say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to fight with you. people, I get those, I'm sure you do too. I get those messages and emails about what I'm doing and I'm a horrible, I'll tell you a quick funny story. So we recently moved back to the East Coast of Florida, but we're from New York, my wife and I, and we were living in California for 11 years. And we were in California during COVID, and there was a restaurant that opened up and basically said, hey, I'm opening up, come in, and no mask, whatever. So we were like, thank God, because everything in California was really shut down. And we go to the restaurant, I took a few pictures, and I just posted it on social media, and I said it was nice that to be able to go to a place, and I have to tell you, I got some horrific responses back. I can't believe this. You're supposed to be helping people, and now you're telling people to go out there. You're putting everybody at risk. So again, that was my choice. My wife and I decided to go out, and I just posted it, and the reaction was so visceral, and it was funny. And there's a lot of negativity and hatred that comes out. So I think that the tolerance and the removing the judgment and just allowing everybody to do what you want is the key for us to really go forward in a peaceful way.
Yes. I certainly have gotten more than my share of hate mail. And I actually laugh when I get this, Joe, because I think, dude, you haven't met me. Your little mad letter isn't going to ruin my day. You should have seen where I grew up. So, you guys are all a piece of cake. I was such a rebel during the whole thing that I would not wear a mask. I mean, I actually went so far as convincing my physician to give me a special prescription that I didn't have to wear a mask. Now, very few people would honor that, Joe, but
yes, my wife did it as well. Had the same experience, so had the same thing.
We laminated it. We hung on a string.
Didn't work well.
Well, but I did wear it. And when people would confront me, I would say, you're welcome to do whatever you want, but I'm also entitled to the same rights.
Yeah.
And with all the little signs on the floor, please go right, I would always go left. And I was thrown out of my hairdresser of 20 years because I wouldn't wear a mask, which was kind of hilarious because my hair is very outstanding, and they had done a great job with it. And people stop me on the street and go, who are your hairdressers? And in the 20 years that I was there, they admitted that I had brought in over 100 new customers. But I also was doing a TV show, and we announced, they were doing my hair. My bank of many years threw me out because I wouldn't sign some disclosure there saying, that they could contact trace me. I said, well, I'll be back in an hour, and I would like a certified check with all my money. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And by the way, they changed their tune instantly.
Yeah, sure.
The minute I gave them, there are going to be consequences for you making up rules. So, both of us are very spiritual driven. And, you just mentioned something I want to bounce off of. You talked about judgment. And I've heard you say this before, judgment blocks your energy. So explain that to our folks.
So judgment is, first of all, we are judgment machines just because we're humans. And we have to understand that we judge constantly. Even positive things are judgment. So if I say, oh, I like your hair, I like this movie, I like your book, that is quote unquote a judgment. The key for us is to not be in negative judgment, because what happens is your flow of energy through your crown chakra, which is where that energy comes in. When you're in a negative state of judgment, you're blocking your flow of energy because you're moving into an egoic state. And you're really also moving into, in general, a fear-based state. So I don't want to go into that place. And because think about it, when you judge someone in a negative manner, you're creating a lot of resistance in your energy field. And we don't want to do that. Now, the one thing I always say to people, and I think it helps them out because they kind of look at me like, what are you talking about? But what I say to people is this: I'm not saying you have to like it, but I'm saying you may not like something. You may say, I don't like that, and you're telling me not to judge it. I'm not telling you not to like it. I'm saying it's okay if you don't like it, but don't judge it. as good or bad, right or wrong. Because in the world of energy, there is no good, bad, right, wrong. It does not exist. And we place value on something one way or another, which gives it power that it does not have. So if you want to create a flowing energy, you're going to dissipate that energy. You're going to dissipate all the negativity by not judging. And when you start judging, you create an immediate resistance and your ego shoots into overdrive. That's why people are fighting. So that is a very key thing. I practice this every single day when I do my morning meditation. It's part of what I do. I just was talking to somebody about this, about, what we need to do right now to center ourselves and make sure that we, take a breath in the morning and shield our energy and be very aware of the negative judgment. Again, not saying you have to like it, but it's because the bottom line is people are allowed to do, everyone has free will to do what they want and believe what they want. That is not my job to tell you not to. My job is to say, hey, I'm going to give you another alternative or another way to look at it. Then you can choose to look at it that way, a different way. That's where my responsibility ends and yours as well. And it's like, hey, if you choose to go down that other road, that's fine. God bless you. I don't judge you. I don't agree with you. I don't want to go down that road, but good for you.
I'm so happy you shared this because I really do not hear a lot of spiritual people explaining this very well. And you have given the most beautiful explanation of how it blocks you. So there's an advantage to you, of course, not to judge anyone else, not to count the lack of karma. Yes.
Not the whole thing.
I'm sure you have, I mean, I know you work with people one-on-one and in groups like I do. I've heard so many, unbelievably sad stories about families. And, during the pandemic, people weren't invited to Thanksgiving holidays, or they were banned from weddings. They were, really wounds that I'm not sure that some families are ever, until more information comes out, going to be able to heal from. Do you have any thoughts about how they could heal a little easier with such rejection from their friends and family?
Well, I did a video on my YouTube channel about, way back when this all started, because I was getting a lot of calls about this as well, and emails and so forth. And I did a video and it was called Organic Separation. So what happened was the pandemic created, basically accelerated energy so we could separate from energies that were not in alignment with us. And in many cases, those were family members and close friends or business associates or whatever the case may be. Now, it's a hard thing to do because we're humans and we, of course, have a lot of attachment to the families and so forth. But basically what it did, and we all, we saw, I cannot tell you, I'm sure you heard the same thing, how many people I spoke to and still do who say, I had friends for 20 years, 30 years, whatever it was, and we're not speaking anymore because of this whole thing. And people see that as a negative. Again, I don't go down that road. I look at it as energetically, your souls are no longer aligned. All this did was bring it to light and in effect, force the situation where because in the higher vibration that we're going into, all this negative energy that you're still attaching to is going to slow you down and create problems. So a lot of people, it forced the situation that really probably should have happened years ago. But so that's why I say it's organic. It was not something that a circumstance arose that allowed these things to really take their natural course. That's really what happened. So if you feel, and listen, you feel sad about it, you feel guilty about it, you may feel upset about it, whatever, those are all valid feelings that you want to go through. At the end of the day, though, it really comes down to understanding that this was something that had to happen for your soul so you could remove yourself from certain people or circumstances or situations that were no longer going to help you now and going forward.
I'm going to look up that video, and thank you so much. I had a particular person I had been really, so close to, and I am not one that holds my tongue very well. So in some private conversation with my friend at the time, no more, I said something that, was natural for me to say. And she went completely bonkers and told me she never wanted to see me again and that I wasn't welcome anymore. And I was so stunned by this. I remember leaving and getting in my car and then shocked, literally shocked that the inside of me was rejoicing.
Yeah.
The inside of me was like, yes, we're free of her. And my conscious mind is pretty much going, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah. What just happened?
What just happened? I mean, this is my friend. We got together every week almost. And she hasn't spoken to me since.
Yeah.
I did not reach back out at her. And today I look at things that were red flags in that relationship, Joe, that I really should have paid attention to a lot. But I have faults, I'm human. And one of my faults is I can be over loyal. I grew up in a very dysfunctional family, which tends to make you, super loyal to anybody who's nice to you. And so I was shocked at the whole feeling of being freed from this disruption. And I mean, I thought about writing her letters of I'm sorry. And then I was like, but what would happen? We would then get back together, and every fiber of my being doesn't want to do that. So I'm so happy I, wanted to interview you about this, because you've actually put together a couple of little missing marbles in my thing there. So thank you. Okay. So,
you're welcome.
I think the next question is going to come right perfect with this, is the power of forgiveness. So I didn't fake forgive her. So, I think people are confused about forgiveness.
Yes.
So let's talk about forgiveness, because it's a very misused tool.
Yeah. So forgiveness is one of these things that people do not understand. And when there's a certain sentence that I hear that I know that the person didn't forgive. And when someone says to me, the person they did the best they can, I know they did not go to forgiveness, because they basically just in effect said, okay, they did what they did and that's the best they could do. Is that true? Yes. But did you actually deal with the emotion connected to the relationship incident? A lot of this will happen again with parents, because we go back and deal with that. But so basically forgiveness comes in stages. And I go through this in a lot of my work. And the first part of it is we want to address the anger, because you're going to be angry at someone who mistreated you. I don't care who you are. I don't care if it's a parent. I don't care if it's a spouse. I don't care if it's a boss, whatever it is. Generally, a lot of this will go back to parents, because that's where the foundations are. So we're going to start with anger first. And I have to address that I'm angry about this. And I have a lot of emotion about this. And a lot of people don't want to do that. I mean, I grew up Catholic, so that was another whole story. And you can't be mad at your parents and all that kind of stuff. So the first thing I have to do is accept that I have anger about the situation. And until I get through the anger, I can't get to the point where I can forgive you. I have to first basically remove and release that anger. And then I want to say, okay, I can forgive you for what you did. And then I really understand it. But because I'm no longer carrying that negative energy. And then the final piece of it, when you've gotten there, and I always tell people, you're not there until you get to compassion. When you reach compassion, you have gotten there. So even though you said, well, I got through the anger, I forgave them, can you have compassion for that person? And really understand and say, I have compassion. You did hurt me. You did make me feel this way. You did bring a lot of pain into my life. But I've now gotten to a place where I understand that that was who you were, and you didn't have capacity to do better, but I'm no longer carrying the anger. So it's a progression of steps to get to peace, to be at peace with it. And most people, like I said, I run into this. I've heard that, I can't tell you how many times in my life when I say, you haven't dealt with the issues regarding your mother or your father. And I said, well, they did the best they could. I know they didn't do anything. They have not dealt with this. And it's the reason people don't deal with it is it's painful to deal with it. It's a painful thing to go back and say, wow, I have all these terrible feelings about my parents. We have guilt, we have shame, We have this feeling that I'm not supposed to feel that way. That is my parent, and that's a sin, or whatever we do. So that is how I explain it to people and take them through. And I say to them, you have to keep digging down until you really get to the compassion, and you'll feel that. I knew when I got to it with my mother and my dad, I knew I reached a different place. I could feel it. It was a feeling within myself that I really felt. So that really would be the forgiveness at really in its true sense, versus what everybody, oh, just forgive it and move on. No, that doesn't work.
So for a while, I worked with a shaman in Australia. She had come to one of my events many years ago, and I was besotted when I met her, meaning just like fell in love with her and her wisdom. And she spoke at one of my events, and she talked about forgiveness, but she went to a way to look at it that most of us don't look at it, which was, she said, what did these negative things that happened to you, say by your parents, what was the benefit for you? And by the way, I was guilty of always used to say about my parents, oh, they were just doing the best they could. And, you know, my father had all these horrible problems and my mother had all these horrible problems. So, you know, I just have to forgive them. But I finally started to realize that their neglect of me as a child and a lot of abuse built me to be a seriously strong human being. That there was no princess, no silver spoons, there was none of that. I mean, I grew up in absolute brutality. But today, I would not be able to do the things that I do today if I had not had that boot camp childhood. And so now I've switched it to being thankful. My parents, God bless them, they both passed away. They really did a lot of bad things. But again, if you coddle people as children too much, they have no discernment, they are not strong. The world demands strong people to be a leader. And I was definitely born to be a leader. You were born to be a leader. And so now when I think of my parents, I'm grateful that the worst part of my life, one, is over. And secondly, that I actually survived it. And now nothing. I mean, you know, I can joke about any confrontation. I laugh at confrontation because it's like, this is nothing, you know, after growing up in, you know, such a incredibly challenging childhood. So I just want to add that because me finding the benefit of that reality and the gifts that it gave to me today shifted my perspective completely. So I'm sure that you're a much stronger person too.
Yeah, and I understand, you know, doing the work, there's the yin yang of life, right? Everything is yin yang. Every negative and every event has two sides to it. And we chose our parents, you know, we go through this from spiritual perspective. We chose our journey. We chose our parents. We chose it, you know, whatever journey we chose based on what we came to do in this lifetime. So, you know, we look at it and say, yeah, had I not, you know, when other people got coddled, they came to have a different experience than say you or I. I had a difficult childhood as well. So I never looked at it, you know, I kind of went through it. And that was part of the anger. The anger was tied to not accepting that I chose this path. And I think that really is empowering for people when they say, oh, you know, I've had all these problems and all these issues, and, you know, you and I as well. And when I say to them, you really get empowered when you say, hey, I chose this path for what I came to do. And as you just said so well, had I not gone through all these things, I would not be able to do what I'm doing. And, you know, it's really something that when you look at life and people who have done different things or succeeded or whatever you want to call it, or had a positive life, they have gone through issues, but by design. So your life is by design. You chose this journey, you chose this path. Now, it doesn't mean we don't have feelings about it or get upset about it or whatever at certain times, but the power of knowing that I chose it because I knew I could get through it and I knew it would help me ultimately to get where I wanted to go, that's a very empowering place to live in.
Yeah, it wasn't fun at all, but
No.
and by the way, I will tell you of all the spiritual concepts, that was the hardest one for me to buy, was that
For many.
my parents.
For many, I want to tell you, I've had people walk out of events on me. I've had people send me horrible messages because they just can't, grasp, especially when it was a bad, you had abusive parents or whatever, whether emotionally, physically, whatever. It's very hard. It's a very hard thing to embrace because it's so counter. Your brain is saying, well, why would I pick? People have said to me, God, why would I pick them? No way. But I'm just like, no, don't think of it logically. Think of it as that's the journey you came to have. That changes the perspective a little bit.
My joke used to be that when I was born, I had colic for 6 months and I was screaming because I was saying, hey, I got off on the wrong stop.
Really?
So, all right. So when you think like that, this is true empowerment because you're really empowering yourself.
Right.
And I've also heard you say that empowerment is not for everyone, that they desire to be victims. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, I can't be both. It's like kind of saying I can't be in the dark and the light. I'm either in the light or I'm not. And if I want to be a victim, then obviously I can't be empowered. Many people choose to be victims. They don't see it that way. They see themselves as, bad luck, or they can't get a break or whatever. And that's fine. That's what they came to do. So you can't do both. You can't be a victim and be empowered. Now, when something negative happens to an empowered person, they're going to be. One of the things I think we also have to understand, just because I'm empowered or I do this work or whatever it is, doesn't mean I don't feel bad or I don't get upset about things, because we do. We're humans. So, but the difference is how you process it. And I think that's really the difference between empowerment and victims. Victims will take a bad situation and validate where they are or validate their problems, where empowered people will say, wow, there's something happening here. I want to deal with this. I want to feel this. I want to get through this. I want to understand what's going on so I can utilize this going forward. And it's a very different way to approach it. So I don't want people to think like, oh, you're empowered, you just go through everything, nothing affects you. No, that is not the case. The difference is really, like I said, perspective and how you deal with it and how you process it. I think that's really the difference. So, but it's a choice, right? I could choose to go down the empowerment road. Now, again, the victim road is easier, and the victim road has a lot of support. Oh, very easy to find people who are in that camp. Yes. That's a camp, right? There's a lot of victims. It's very easy for you to pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm going to talk to so-and-so about what happened, and they're going to commiserate with me, and we're going to talk about how horrible everybody is. And I always make a joke. I said, I don't get those calls. Because people know that it's not going to be the call we're going to have. So, but also, you know who to call. You know who to call when you want to feel bad, and who's going to, in effect, instead of saying, hey, this is what's really happening, they're going, oh yeah, that he's terrible, she's terrible, everybody's terrible, the world is terrible, and for you. And again, it doesn't mean you shouldn't feel bad about it or feel sad about it or feel upset about it. It doesn't mean you shouldn't. It's just a matter of understanding that it's purposeful and there's something you want to pull out of it, and then you want to deal with it and go forward. And again, it's a slippery slope because it's very easy to fall off the wagon and go into the victim thing, because it is very easy, and it is very, I will tell you, for the most people are in victim energy, and they will jump. This is why we have all these protests and all these different things, because they're not coming from an empowered space. So we want to understand, how do I do something that makes the situation better? That's the goal. And if I'm going to, sit in it. Now, I will tell you, when I do a lot of clearing work, a lot of times you got to really get down there and feel bad, because that's how you get it out. Right. And sometimes an incident will happen that you'll create, because you create everything. Your soul is always creating in advance. I always tell people, your soul's already creating well in advance. It's already you're on the path. Now you can adjust it as you go, but you're going in a direction. So the faster you deal with these things and get through it, the easier it will be. And over time, I found that as doing the work and helping others, the more, it's like anything else. It's like going to the gym, right? You're getting in better shape. Now I can run faster. I can do more push-ups. It's easier. You know, it's like the first day you say, oh, I couldn't lift 5 pounds and now I'm lifting 50 pounds. It's the same idea. So you got to keep working those muscles. And again, the faster you process it, the faster you'll get out of it. And then you want to stay out of that victim space, but it is a popular location.
Yes, it's the most popular location, I think. When bad things happen to me, and God knows they do, I do go through the initial shock. I'm not going to say I don't drop into victimhood for a couple of minutes until I can pull myself together. But I started asking myself, what does this mean?
Mhm.
What does this really mean? And is there a hidden opportunity because this happened that I just cannot see yet? So I'm seeking that. And both of us have had clients, I'm sure, that got fired from a job.
Oh, sure.
And they're victims. But then you remind them, every time I've talked to you, you hated your job. It
Right.
was a job going nowhere. It didn't pay you enough. It didn't really tap into your talent, skills, and abilities. And instead of looking at it like you're a victim and you've been fired, what if you looked at it if you've been freed up to find something that you love that'll pay better and you have more fun and all that? Now that's a hard sell.
Yeah. Well, I always tell people, you chose to be fired.
Oh yeah,
So-
that's very popular.
So, and they'll say, well, what are you talking about? So, well, you wanted to be exactly for the reasons you just gave, right? You were unhappy. You didn't want to quit, but you really didn't want to be there. And then you chose to create a circumstance where you would be fired. You chose that. Now, sometimes it's more empowering to quit. So that's another thing, instead of waiting to be fired when you're unhappy, it's empowering to say, you know what, I'm just going to move on because this is not for me. So that's another thing. And I went through that because I grew up kind of in the, you have to kill me to get rid of me mentality. That was kind of how we grew up. It was no quitting under any circumstance, regardless of what was happening, that didn't exist. And it took me a long time to finally say, oh, okay, I'm allowed to walk away from something that I don't like, even though, it was ingrained. Again, we have these deep belief systems and patterns from when we were kids. And, that was kind of how I grew up. And it was like, there was no quitting. You could be dead. My mother was very tough. My dad died when I was 12 years old. She was a super tough person. She was the type, I always make a joke. I say, if you walked outside and got hit by a car, she'd be like, you're going to be late for school. So that was kind of how we, there was no, oh, you're okay. It was just like, get up, you're going to be late. So I think, these things stay with us. It takes time to get out of it because it's so part of who we are.
Yeah, well, your mother and my father would have been right on the same page. I remember falling off a really tall horse at 12 years old and in the hospital, and my father's trying to hurry them up because I'm missing school.
Yeah, right. So
It's like, she's fine. She's just put a Band-Aid on her.
you're good.
She's good. And I pretty much still kind of have that today. Again.
Oh yeah, I do too. I have the same, listen, I'm aware of it. I work on it and I try to be very, very mindful of it, but it's so deep. It was so ingrained. And again, what you said earlier is true. There are times when that is very helpful, when you have to get through something or push through something or get something done. So again, it's not all bad. There are parts of it that made us tough and resilient and say, hey, I had to get this done and I got it done and other people would not be able to do it. So, again, just learning to kind of cherry pick it a little bit as far as where to do it.
So the next thing I wanted to talk about when we were talking about them is emotional issues, and quickly, what are some of your tips? So when, somebody has that gut punch, some of the very first things that they could do to deal with that emotional trauma.
Well, whenever something happens, I always take people through the process of clearing it. And what I try to train them to do is understand that there are layers. So the first thing that happens to us when something happens is what I would describe as a surface emotion. So that would be you're angry, you're upset, you're pissed off, whatever you want to say. That's that initial visceral, hey, you said this to me and you're an idiot, right? But so that's the first thing. We just address that. That's the surface. What we really want to do is identify what was the real feeling that came up. So, for example, you could be in a meeting, somebody said something, it hit you a certain way, you got really angry at them. And one of the things you don't want to do, and of course we all have done it, is project the anger onto the person. And which, again, that stalls you in that space. So what I'll say is, okay, that person said something to you, you felt a certain way. Let's get past the first part where they're an idiot. Okay, fine. Now, what I'll say is, what were you actually feeling at the moment? And that sometimes, a lot of people struggle with this because they say, well, I was angry. I said, no, no, no. That's what you felt initially. What were you actually, how did it make you feel? And it's hard for people sometimes to get there. And then they'll finally get there. They'll say something like, well, I felt like I wasn't important, or I felt like I was disrespected, or something like that. And that's the feeling that came up. And now, at a higher level, your soul knows you triggered that person to say that to you, so you could deal with it, right? So now, if I say, well, I felt unimportant, now I would take them back and say, well, growing up, who made you feel unimportant? And they'll say, my mother or my father. So that's where it anchors. You want to get to the anchor of where it really started. It has nothing to do with this person in the meeting. That's it. They're just helping you get to the feeling. I always say you should thank them because they helped you, get to a feeling that you were not getting to. So the way your soul is going to work is it's going to say, hey, you can do two different things. You can, what I call, now when you get advanced, and this took me a long time, but you could do what I call a preemptive strike. So that means I'm going to work on my feelings before I create an incident. And that means I'm always working on my emotions. So if I work on my emotions in advance and say, wow, I'm feeling a certain way, let me deal with that feeling. Now, if I don't deal with it, my soul will say, well, okay, Joe, you're not getting this one. I'm going to create an incident for you so we can bring it to your consciousness. So those are the ways we're playing the game. And the further along you get, as you get better, you say, oh, I don't have to keep creating an incident, or I may create a very small thing that'll just bring it into my awareness. And I'm sure you've had this too, where I had it recently where I went to meet somebody since we moved and they were needing sales training and so forth. And I go in and I met with the guy, and, I was also, I don't know if you were the same way. I was kind of like, I have to close every deal. This was my old way of operating. Like I have to, if I don't care who it is, what it is, I'm closing the deal. So that was also something I had to get out of, stop myself from doing it. So I met with the guy, I walked out. I knew in about literally probably a minute that this was not the guy for me. And the universe brought that person into my consciousness to say, okay, good job. You didn't force that issue. It was almost like it brought it up to me just as like a little check-in. So sometimes we get those too, where it's like, okay, here's a little check-in. I'm going to bring you this opportunity for you to meet this person. And what are you going to do? And I walked out. It was like, that was it. I just was done. I knew it wasn't the thing. But in the past, I would not have done that. In the past, I would have been all over that, trying to close that deal. And so this is what I'm saying. This is the difference of evolving, where you realize things before I could have maybe forced it. I could have gotten in there and it would have probably blown up into a big mess. So these are kind of things that we do as we evolve. And that's what we want to do. We want to evolve into a point where we can catch it early, or in effect, not create it at all. That's the really super advanced level.
Yes, that closing the deal every single time. Well, you'll sell your soul on that one.
Oh yeah, we've all been there.
Oh yes, absolutely. I know you have a new book out. So do you have a copy we could see? And
I do not. It's actually not out yet. It will be out in early August. Actually, my goal is 8/8, which is the Lionsgate portal, which is a big energy shift day. So I scheduled it for that day. So I actually don't even have a copy yet. I just got the final email proofs back. So hopefully I will have a copy soon. I have the old version, but not the new version, but I'll get it.
So I know when you first came into my awareness, it was because you had written a book about selling that was spiritual. And I was like, right. Oh God, thanks, somebody else is doing this. This is great.
That's this one. This is the original.
Yes. And I have that book.
And now we're doing the 2.0.
In fact, it's right on the top shelf up there. Okay. And I wanted to pull it out and somehow got distracted. But well, Joe, what do you first tell us how people can find you? And because you have a lot to offer.
Yeah, if they go to just my main site is joenunz.com, because nobody could ever spell my name. So it's Joe, I got a shortened version, which is JOENUNZ.com. And if you go on that site, I have, you can connect to one of my channels. I'm actually launching another channel as well. There's also, I have some free meditations on there, and all information, whatever you're looking for, that's the best place to find out.
Well, I have been on some of your Saturday teachings and your meditation, and they are completely wonderful. And I highly recommend for anybody who's watching this, please look up Joe and buy his book and, look into his stuff, because I'm very proud of myself. I have a great sense of authentic people, and you are truly authentic.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And that's also, in an industry that we're in, there's a lot of, and again, we're not judging, we're just observing that there is a lot of the other side of that as well. So I always say people, do that. There's so much, you gotta remember, we're doing this a long time. We're doing this pre all this technology. And I think back in the day when we started, it was different, because you either met somebody at an event, or you saw somebody you kind of got, or you read their book, whatever it was, you got to know who they were. There wasn't this ability to just fire all this stuff out there. I want to say crap, for lack of a better term, but there's a lot of stuff coming out, and people are just getting hit with all this information, and I think it's making it a little challenging. So I always say, vet who you're looking at, make sure that you align with them, make sure that they're the real deal. Do some follow up, make sure there's nothing shady going on, because we know this is, we're just right for all this now with the technology and situations that we're in. And you and I, like I said, when we started, we didn't have that. It was very different. So that's just my advice to people. Just, make sure you do your due diligence, or if you got referred, like if somebody referred you or you referred somebody to me, I would right away, of course I know you, so it would be different. So again, same kind of thing of do your homework. That's what I always thought of.
Okay, so before we leave, do you have any advice for people? One of the things in the current war we're in, for everything, so there's, sometimes it's the normies and sometimes it's the truthers. But have you noticed that of late the truthers are turning on each other a little, and it's just it's disturbing. How do you personally discern when you're, looking at people, or you're watching a podcast or something? Is there anything? I'll give you a hint. For instance, when I'm listening to someone, my body is always talking to me.
Yeah, of course.
And so I have this thing called the head, heart, gut connection. We all have that.
Yeah.
But I really pay attention to it. And I could really like someone and be listening. And then all of a sudden I can hear something that's not congruent. That, or is this a shift of energy or something? And then I go, well, I need to do more research on that person.
Yeah, I think, I think there's a lot. What you're saying is, obviously, if it's in your gut, if you hear something off, that's a red flag. So don't ignore that. The other part, I think, is also what I've seen, what's happened to me. And there are a lot of people that I used to really like and follow. And, I still maybe like some of the work that they did, but they turned it into another direction that was not in alignment. And I just said, okay, they served their purpose for me, and it's time to move on. One of the things that your soul will do, and again, this is a very interesting part of this, your soul will bring only things into your consciousness that you need to see. So it's going to bring this person into your consciousness. Now, it doesn't mean it's always good for you. Sometimes it's about, I'm going to bring this in, and you have to do your due diligence and then to see if that's a good thing. Other times it'll bring the person in that can help you. Now, I will tell you, and I'm sure you've had the same situation, where I've had people come back into my life or come into my life in different ways that I could help, who have never, and I say, call me, get in touch with me, email me, whatever, we'll talk, we'll do, and they have not done it. And that is an opportunity that they chose not to take. And this is what's happening all day long, right? You're getting opportunities where things are coming, and you have to say, okay, how do I follow through? And then sometimes you go through it a little bit and say, okay, not for me. But again, a few things you said earlier are so important, right? It's helping me learn something. So it might have taken me halfway there. I had a guy work with me recently on my channels, and he took me a certain level, and then it was kind of like, okay, this didn't work, but there was some really valuable things. He wasn't the perfect person, but he got me to a place that I needed to get to. So that's what happens too. Sometimes you meet somebody and they get you to this, and then somebody else will help you get to this. But I needed the first step. So again, you need to always be aware of where you are in the process, and then also, okay, when do I feel? And I'll tell you one of the most powerful things when the woman who one of the people I worked with years ago taught me the chakras and clearing, and she said to me, this is about empowerment, and you're going to get to a point where you don't want to read any more books, and you don't want to do, because it's all going to be the same. So you don't need it anymore. It's all going to be your inner self, and you're going to bring everything to you that you need, and then you're going to just work that way. So I think there's also a tendency for people to look for the next thing. There's only one truth, and that's it. And however you find it is up to, we're all different. But the idea that you're missing something, that's not true. The idea is you're not seeing it. It's there. It's just a matter of, can you see it? And are you ready to see it? Because you've got to be prepared to see it before, and say, oh, okay, that's the truth, and accept it. And like you said, all these people who are in the other side, they can't accept it. And I will tell you, it's very difficult as for humans to accept harsh truth. And you and I know, and I would tell you something, the next couple of years, this is nothing to what's coming. What's coming is going to be much more extreme, where all things are going to come out and people are going to really be upset. And it's going to be a very wild couple of years. I think this year in 24, I think 25 will start to really turn it more, but I'm thinking the rest of this year and next year it's going to be pretty wild. I'm just preparing myself.
Okay, so what we really didn't focus on it is your power with reading astrological. Am I saying that right? Astrological influences.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an astrologer. I just tap into what's going on, and I just kind of feel the vibe. So I don't know that I'm not like. I don't consider, I mean, I follow the moons and all that kind of stuff because I find it interesting. I know it affects us, but I'm not really an astrologer. I just kind of go by what I'm feeling. And I'm just feeling like, okay, the rest of this year, next year, we of course have an election here. So forget it. That's going to be a crazy year. And I think it's good. And I don't think it's good. People say, oh, is it going to be bad? Is it going to be good? I said, well, it's going to be whatever you want it to be. It could be great for you, and if we look at historically, look at the world during the Great Depression, even though 25% of the population was unemployed, there were people making fortunes of money.
Absolutely.
So, and I think people look at these things and say, oh, everybody. I said, no. I said, that's not true. I said, you're going to determine your situation. It has nothing to do with all this stuff. If you choose to believe that, oh, everything's going down and I'm going to be down the tubes and nobody's going to be able to, live and whatever, then that's what you will create. And it's very important that you right now, because the energy is moving really fast, you have to stay focused on what you want to create and what you desire, and not what happened before or what you're afraid of. So we all have fear. If you see a fearful thought, fear-based feelings coming up, deal with that right away. I always tell people, just like reset yourself. This is where I want to go. Just keep yourself in that track. As the fears come up, deal with them, and you will create the life that you want, regardless of what happens. And I think that's really something that we want to understand. We're not victims to the circumstance unless we allow it to happen.
So when things go crazy and I have any insecurities whatsoever, I actually look at myself in the mirror. I love mirror work because you can't hide from your own eyes. And I say to myself, it doesn't make any difference what's going to happen because you have a superpower working for you, and that is you.
Yeah.
You are always on your side. And that gives me comfort because I do believe the next few years are going to be turbulent. I think when more truth comes out, they're going to, all the people who are going, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
I can't believe that my government or my, healthcare person or whoever would lie to me. And we could go down many rabbit holes.
Oh,
but we
yes.
won't. So I am preparing. I mean, I
Yeah.
am preparing for that we might have times of chains breaking of delivery. I mean, I grew up on a ranch farm. So we literally and we don't consider ourselves preppers. I think
Yeah.
other people would. A year's of food in
Yeah.
advance, 8 weeks of water, all the accoutrements that we could think of that, like the other day, we live on the Chesapeake Bay. We went out and bought fishing rods because guess what?
Hey.
I don't live on a farm anymore. We can go fish, So, and my friends were kidding me and said, well, I didn't know you were a fisher. And I said, only if I have to be, but I've got the equipment to do it.
Yeah.
And I've also
You ready?
I've looked at my business in like, how can I trim the fat away from the business, add that money and resources into more sustainable things going forth in the future. So both of us got caught in the circumstances of we were in front of people.
Yeah.
And there's no better way to get clients than to be in front of people.
100%.
And so it's been a while since I got to be in front of people, and then my whole life became Zoom, but
Yeah.
it's still a completely different animal.
Very different.
The magnetism, the energy, the attraction does not relate as well just with video. So I've just decided, no matter what, I'm going to have a good life because it's my life. And I'm not going to blame anybody. I mean, there's certain people I wish would go away. I realize there's a reason that they're there, and there's a reason I'm living now. And I love that you talk about, the soul thing, because that seems to be a missing link.
Yeah.
In most people's decisions.
Yeah, I think you have to connect to your soul, and I think that's something that people are very in their heads. They're very mental, and your soul is speaking to you all day if you allow it to happen, and your soul is guiding you. It's kind of like whenever you had serendipity in your life, that was you just kind of going with this flow of your soul. And and it doesn't mean sometimes your soul will bring you challenges for certain reasons too. And the bottom line is, right now, alignment is very important for us, because energetically, as things have sped up, things are happening faster. And if we're out of alignment, if we're way out of alignment, it's going to be a boulder. And if you're a little out of alignment, it'll be a pebble. And that's what I've noticed with people that have been kind of resisting the truth about themselves, about their life, about many things. They are getting hammered because it's almost like things are just speeding up. And before, you were able to kind of get away with it a little bit more. But now, as it continues to speed up, and this year has been very fast, once we got out of the beginning of the year, the retrograde period, it has been super fast, and it's just getting faster and faster. So that really, to me, is, and your soul is trying to say, hey, do this, do that. We moved from California back to the East Coast in Florida, but we did not feel aligned there anymore. We just said, hey, you know what? We're going to get out of here. Everything. And again, perfect example, Lee, just to tell you, we came here for a trip. We looked around, and at that point, everything was going crazy here because people were buying everything and you couldn't get anything. So, we went back home. We kind of got an area that we liked, and we said, you know what? We'll take our time. We'll see what this was in April. We got back beginning of May. We said, oh, we'll take our time. Last year in 22. And we said, let's see what happens. We had a great real estate agent. All of a sudden, my wife goes online. She finds a place. She goes, I think this is really everything we wanted. Because it was funny. The night before, we said, here's what we want. We want a garage. We want this. We want that. Because there's some weird stuff over here they don't have. And she said, I found this place. It's this. It's got a great, big, nice office space, which I'm in right now. And I think this will be good. Let me call the woman up, call up the owner, said, listen, we're ready to go. And we negotiated the price. And she said, okay, but we were done. And 30 days later, we were out. We closed in 30 days and we moved. So it was like the universe said, yes, boom, boom, boom. Supporting. See, so that's what I'm talking about. You had the idea. You start moving the energy forward. the universe will support that decision, or the universe will say, you know what? Yeah, you're kind of okay. You got to just go a little over here. You're going the right direction, but I need you to go a little over here. So we need to be open to that too, to say, hey, yeah, I'm going in the right thing, but I'm a little off the mark. I need to go a little bit right or left. You need to be open to that. And don't be so rigid, but because we were just ready to go. We weren't even exactly sure the location, but we ended up in a great spot. So that's part of it, is put your intention, start moving your energy forward, start doing things. Like we came here, we started looking, we were ready to go. It just happened, bang, bang, bang. And it happened to us actually the same way when we bought our house in New York years ago. So those things have happened to everybody. We just want to stay in that space. So my advice to everybody is, when you start thinking too much, you're in trouble.
Yes, because all of those thoughts you're having are usually yakking from
not
someone
good.
else. They're just parroting other people's thoughts and beliefs and stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, listen, can I invite you back at another time? Because I'm
Absolutely.
so much
Absolutely
to
great.
talk about. I would love that. Okay, folks. Joe, tell them your website one more time.
Oh, Joe, JoeNunz.com, JoeNunz.com.
Excellent. And folks, here we are on we're on Rumble, and this is the Grassroots Network. And of course, this is Lee Milteer, the Blonde Warrior Show. We would be most grateful if you would like, comment, and share on the show. And I have a gift for everybody from me, and it's a very fast 5 types of energy. 5 FIVE types of energy.com, and it's 5-minute videos. There are 5 of them. You'll get one a day, and it's on mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual and financial energy, which is your currency. And it will be very beneficial for you to think differently about before you use your energy in non-productive ways. So, Joe, thank you so much. And we're going to wrap. And thanks everybody for being with us. And this is Lee Milteer, the Blonde Warrior.